Hello everybody, in today's video I wanted to talk about the nutrient that people are most deficient in. And you're probably thinking it's maybe vitamin D, vitamin C, or sodium, potassium, magnesium, some other sort of micronutrient like that. But it's none of those. It's something that is way simpler in the way we think of diet than a small micronutrient. The nutrient that we are actually most deficient in is protein. People today do not consume enough protein. And so you might be wondering, why is this a bad thing? Protein is, the way I see it, is the most important nutrient you can consume in your diet. And the reason for this is that it promotes effectively every cell and every cell function in the entire body. It is responsible for the building of every cell. It's responsible for the building of every hormone, enzyme, receptor, all these things. And on top of that, when it comes to things like muscle, having enough protein in your diet will allow you to support and promote healthy muscles. And you can't have healthy, strong muscles if you don't consume enough protein in your diet, because muscles have a natural turnover of amino acids or protein within them. And so if you're breaking down the muscle and taking out amino acids, you also have to be able to then replace them with more amino acids. And if you're not consuming enough protein in your diet, you're not going to possibly be able to rebuild the muscle adequately, so it's actually just going to keep shrinking. And on top of that, if you're adding exercise on top of that, it'll also start to shrink the muscle. And having a smaller muscle that is weaker means that you have an unhealthy muscle. Muscles are always best when they are strong, and they are typically a little bit larger. Obviously, within reason and without any sort of performance enhancements, but a bigger muscle, stronger muscle is a healthier muscle because it is more metabolically adapt, and it is actually being used, so it makes you more insulin sensitive, meaning that you actually are able to uptake glucose, and your body responds to when insulin is released. So all these things are help promote the muscle and help promote good health and metabolic function within the body. And using muscle is just an example because a lot of people do have smaller muscles than would be ideal for health, because of the fact that they are rather sedentary, they don't consume enough protein, and as a result, muscles are small. And a little bonus point on this is that protein on its own stimulates muscle protein synthesis in the muscle. It stimulates the synthesizing of protein, meaning it takes a bunch of amino acids and links them together to create whatever protein necessary within the tissue. It promotes this when you consume amino acids or protein. And so in stimulating this, you are then helping with the growth of muscle. Just as a little side note if you're interested on that. And now, when it comes to meals, I have a very strict rule on I do not consider it a meal unless it has an adequate amount of protein. So, and what do I mean by adequate? Adequate for me. I mean for myself, it's typically about 50 to 100 grams of protein. I can constitute that as a meal. Anything less than that, or if it doesn't have any protein at all, it's just a snack. And the reason why I say this is because me naturally being very interested in nutrition and diet and all that stuff, I, whether it's rude or not, pay attention to what other people eat. And a lot of the times I notice that people simply eat as a solution to being hungry. They're hungry and they no longer want to be, so what can I put in my mouth to stop the hunger? And I think that eating purely out of the fact that you're hungry and putting anything in your mouth that will solve that is one of the worst reasons to eat, because there's so many more benefits to eating than just not being hungry. That's a very low priority one, at least to me. You can very much nourish your body. Nourishing your body is for me number one, and then it's taste, and then it's whatever, and then it's not being hungry anymore, because not being hungry is not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, people will eat whatever. It'll be like some poutine. It'll be some fast food that doesn't really have much sustenance. I guess you could say doesn't have much protein, And while none of these things have protein, they're going to likely be processed as well. So when it comes to a meal, it has to have an appropriate amount of protein. And now I touched on this a little bit in the previous video on how much people should be consuming. I go by the 1 gram per pound of body weight, of body weight for the protein, and then you can divvy that up in your meals. I would say try to get between at least 30 to 50 grams, if not more, per meal. If you can't get it in one meal, you can snack throughout the day to increase the amount of protein you consume throughout your day. Because for this, it's one of those things where I would always suggest having a little more is better than having a little less. Because the damage to having more, there is none. And having less, well, again, there's no damage. Why not be in a surplus? Worst case, you're gonna pee some of it out. Not a big deal. And also, when it comes to protein, what's the best source of protein? And it is meat. Meat is by far the best source of protein, hands down, no conversation, enough said. And when it comes to meat, which ones would I recommend? I would recommend more the red meat side of things, simply because of the fact that they're more nutrient dense. They have a lot more micronutrients in them that will then even further support health within your body. Things like beef, for example, has a lot of zinc, has creatine, and also the fat within something like beef is very good for you, along with good cholesterol and that you'll get from there as well. It's very good for the body, contrary to what people say. Beef is probably the number one thing you can consume. It's also the most accessible. Then it'll be something like lamb or bison or whatever else you can find that's red and meaty looking. So that's kind of the topic on protein. It's a very important thing that I think a lot of people miss out on a lot of the benefits of consuming enough protein. It's if you don't think you're consuming enough protein, you're probably not. I would take a second now to think about what kind of things you eat in your day and see where can I add a little bit more protein. And also, I would advise staying away from supplements like protein powders and whatnot. Go with natural whole sources of food, such as meat is a good option. Eggs are also a great option, and dairy is also a good option as well. So, pick your favorites from there and see how you can slot them in to your diet as well. Fish is also a good option as well. I forgot to mention. You get a lot of good fats out of there, and as well good protein. But yeah, make sure you get enough protein in your diet. Your body will thank you for it, especially if you're training. You gotta make sure that you can maintain and increase the amount of muscle that you have within your body. Especially as you get older, it's only going to benefit your health. So if you to no longer be deficient in protein, make sure that every meal is packed with protein through whole natural sources, and you'll be thriving in no time. Yeah. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you in the next one.